We're back on the SportsMax Zone. The off-field controversies have been put aside for now as the focus turns to the football at the World Cup, which began on Sunday in Qatar. 4 matches have already been contested over the first 2 days of the 32-team tournament. Let's have a quick look at those results now for matches Groups A and B. Ecuador with 2 Valencia goals defeating the hosts 2-0. Senegal beaten today by the Netherlands, also 2-0. And in the Group B fixtures we've seen so far, England 6-2 over Iran, 2 goals there for Saka, and the USA in a 1-1 draw with Wales. Wales coming from behind late with a Gareth Bale penalty to get a share of the points. One of our international football correspondents, Simon Evans, joining us now to discuss. Simon, early going in the World Cup tournament, some excitement seen so far, especially today, that 8-goal game involving England, and then a walloping fixture between the USA and Wales closing off Monday's schedule. Your thoughts on the matches that you've seen so far, and which would you say has been the most exciting or fulfilling for you as a spectator?
Well, I think that USA-Wales game was competitive and tight, and 2 teams that were quite closely matched, which I think the tournament needed after 3 games. Well, certainly 2 games that weren't like that. I think Senegal gave a pretty decent showing against Holland for most of that game until they went behind, and then they didn't really have any answers then. But in the other games, you know, Iran were really poor. I was very disappointed with how badly they played. I mean, England did play well. They'll take the plaudits, and they deserved them. They played with some freedom and confidence, but they were allowed far too much space and room to do what they wanted. And I think, you know, that change of coach Iran made in September, I don't think has served them well, actually, because they were a very well-organised, compact side, and they were anything but that today.
Yeah, and let's go back quickly to the opening game on Sunday, Simon, because Qatar looked a little bit out of their depth against the Ecuadorians, who are not considered one of the top teams in the tournament. So Qatar looking to have a pretty rough group passage here, and chances are they'll be out before we know it.
Yeah, it was a very, very surprisingly bad performance from Qatar. I mean, they are the champions of Asia at the end of the day. You expected a lot more from them. And having seen them in some of the Gold Cup games as well, where they held their own, more than held their own, actually, they did pretty well. I think they froze on the big occasion. I think there's just been so much hype in Qatar about this tournament that when they took the field in a packed stadium that they're not really used to, with all the world watching and the ceremony beforehand and everything, I just think they completely froze. They just didn't compete at all.
Yes, Simon, I want to go back to the England win. We had Jude Bellingham getting his first goal for England. What a goal that was. And of course, he set the momentum for the rest of the goals that came, and a lot of them they were.
Yeah, he was excellent again. He really is an exciting prospect, is Bellingham. And Saka was brilliant. Raheem Sterling had an excellent performance. You know, there was Rashford came off the bench and scored immediately. So there was a lot of things for England to be really happy about. But ultimately, that was, without doubt, the easiest game they'll have in this tournament. And they're going to have tougher opponents in the USA and Wales.
Simon, for a second, you know, being a Manchester City supporter, I forgot that Jack Grealish knows how to score goals.
Yeah, and it was very nice of Callum Wilson as well, making his World Cup debut and cutting in from the right. And a lot of strikers, even though it wasn't a total opening for him, a lot of strikers would have had a go there at that stage of the game with them comfortably ahead. But he didn't. He slipped it across the face of the goal for a fairly simple finish for Grealish, but one that will boost his confidence, which needed boosting.
Definitely. And speaking about boosting confidence, Senegal without Sadio Mane, you know, he's been the headlines going into the tournament. Netherlands overcoming them 2-0 today.
Yeah, really, you know, the Netherlands, people have talked about them lacking a top striker, and they do lack that. But Senegal didn't really pose enough of a threat up front. They're very strong in the centre of midfield. They closed down and neutralised Frankie de Jong pretty well. So I thought there were some positives there for Senegal in that game. I'm not writing them out of the tournament by no means. Qatar and Iran, a different thing altogether. Senegal were very competitive against a decent Holland side, but a Holland side that you can't really see going deep in this tournament because they just don't have that attacking threat.
Yeah, you know what, Simon, in the USA-Wales match, which you suggested just now, and I agree with you 100%, as far as a spectacle was concerned, it probably was the most engaging that we've seen so far. What are your thoughts on this USA team? Because this side of the world in the Caribbean, people tend to speak very disparagingly about the USA. But if you check their World Cup record, they never usually embarrass themselves at the World Cup stage, and were actually quarterfinalists, weren't they, in 2002? And even 2014, when Germany were champions, Germany only beat them 1-0, I think, in the round of 16. They were very strong today, and even though Wales got a point out of the fixture with that late Gareth Bale goal, the general feeling was that the USA were in a position to take all 3 points against the European side.
Yeah, no, they were. They played with real confidence. I thought they looked... I think Wales played into that a little bit by sitting back too much in the first half and giving them space. But I thought Adams was excellent in midfield. McKinney had a good game. And they've got a good young side, you know. And we didn't even see Giovanni Reina, the Dortmund player, who was left on the bench for some reason. But he's another, you know, Pulisic as well. They've got young talent in that side, and they've been worried about not having an out-and-out goal-scoring striker, and that may prove their undoing eventually. But there were a lot of positives for them. I don't think they reacted that well, though, when Wales started to go more direct in the second half. Perhaps inevitable that the control that the US had was going to slip a little bit. But I think they'll be pretty pleased with their performance. I don't think they're a bad side at all. This might be one World Cup too soon for them. But given that they're hosting the next one, it could be a really good stepping stone for them to do something interesting in 26.
Yeah, of course, Simon will be in Doha in short order covering the World Cup. And just stand by, Simon, because we still have a few more things to discuss here as far as World Cup football is concerned. Cristiano Ronaldo made a surprise appearance at a news conference on Monday, the 37-year-old making his first public comment since his controversial interview with British broadcaster Piers Morgan. Ronaldo was adamant that his row with Manchester United would in no way prove a distraction to the Portugal squad. As for the timing of the interview, Ronaldo said, "The best timing is always my timing." You remember in the interview, which was aired on Talk TV's Piers Morgan Uncensored, Ronaldo said he felt betrayed by Manchester United and that he did not respect manager Erik ten Hag. He also criticised club owners, the Glazers family, for not caring about the sporting side of the club. Simon, what do you make of Ronaldo's remarks today as Portugal gets ready for football with him as a lead man?
Well, I think it has been a distraction. Now, you know, how much that has impacted on the Portugal team, we don't know. I mean, some teams are very good at keeping out what they call the outside noise and remaining tight in the locker room and everything. But the fact that for days before this World Cup started, all the buzz and chatter around international football was about Ronaldo's Piers Morgan interview can't really have helped the focus in the Portugal team. We'll see when they take the field whether it did any harm to the team morale or anything, because obviously he has a couple of Manchester United teammates there in Bruno Fernandes and Diogo Dalot. But we'll see. But clearly was not well timed for Portugal.
Yeah, we saw a report coming out today that he has now reached 500 million in Instagram followers, which is a world record. So I guess Ronaldo, CR7, feels as if he's king of the world.
Yeah, you know, and it's a brand Ronaldo, I think, from now on. I mean, he's clearly going to be on his way out of United one way or another, and it'll be interesting to see what he does next. But I think the fact he's so conscious of his brand and his marketability makes me think he might well end up in this part of the world in Major League Soccer.
Yeah, and Simon, based on how everything has unfolded, Ronaldo has a lot to prove at this World Cup, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can almost picture already the situation when he scores a goal for Portugal and runs to the camera giving it that one, you know, because he's going to absolutely love it if he can turn it on. He'll totally be determined. The standard of defences he'll be up against in some of these games isn't Premier League standards, so there's every chance the tempo isn't as high. There's every chance Ronaldo could do very well in this tournament. And he's not a bad side, Portugal, actually. They're not featuring in the top 5 of many of the bookmakers' favourites, but they're pretty close to that. I think they would be 6th or 7th in most people's lists. And they could do very well. And what a story that would be if Ronaldo was to come into this tournament after that interview and that row and put himself on the market with a great run in the World Cup.
do you see if he were to do well, he'd have a lot of English Premier League teams, clamoring for him?
European teams, yeah, as well. I think it'll be interesting to see where he does end up. I mean, I think, that I've heard that Inter Miami in Major League Soccer, David Beckham's team, have inquired about whether he'd be interested in coming over to the United States. There's been rumours about Chelsea and Bayern Munich and other teams, but I just wonder if he hasn't got to that stage where, even with that remarkable self-confidence that he has, let's put it that way, he might just be realising that he's coming towards the end of the road in Europe, and it might not be a bad idea to take a couple of years in Los Angeles or Miami and build his brand over here.
I'm not thinking the CR7 is looking to MLS football, though, Simon.
Well, that's a different story.
Not now at the moment, anyway. Do you think he'll get a lot of goals for Portugal, though? Because he has suggested that Man United didn't facilitate him flourishing as an ace goal scorer. And Portugal's style and the image that he has in that setup may do so.
They will be set up to play to his strengths, yeah. They won't be worrying about whether he's pressing enough and all those debates that went on about in England. His job will be to be in and around the penalty area, to get on the end of the chances. And there will be chances because, not only have they got Bruno Fernandes there, but, you've got Bernardo Silva, who's a fantastic player who could really light up this World Cup. And they've got other talented players there in Nevas and Moutinho and so on. So, a good side, Portugal, a lot of good players. And I think, it's surprising this generation hasn't been in the final, really. And so we'll see how they do. You never know. Once you get into the knockout stage, almost anything can happen.
Yeah, quickly before you go, Simon, we have an early morning fixture in the morning with Argentina up against Saudi Arabia. First look at Lionel Messi in the tournament. And from Caribbean and CONCACAF standpoints, the Confederation giants Mexico, they're up against Poland. Your quick thoughts on these two matches, which are two of the games we'll be looking at on Tuesday? Yeah,
it's not been a good start for Asia, has it, with Iran and Qatar, and I think that will continue with Saudi Arabia, should be convincingly beaten by Argentina. That Mexico-Poland game is probably the one to watch because I think that's going to determine whether Mexico advance. It's going to be tough for the CONCACAF teams to get out of their groups. The US have got a chance, Mexico have got a chance, but if Mexico are going to get out of that group, they've got to deal with Poland. So that's a big game, and Poland are a decent side, and of course have a goal scorer of their own in Robert Lewandowski.
Yeah, okay, Simon, thanks for talking to us. We'll be having our eyes glued on the World Cup, and we certainly welcome your interaction with us on World Cup football. Thanks, man.
Cheers, all the best.
Yeah, we go to break now. Still a lot more to come on the SportsMax Zone after the break.